welcome everyone to Wahine Wednesday. I'm Mita Vu. I'm the founder of Hub Co-working. Hoping most of you have been to some of our events this week. We've had the Entrepreneur Sandbox is one of our locations. This is one of our locations. We've got one in Waikiki. And so most of Honolulu Tech Week's been happening at our spaces. Have you guys been able to attend a lot of the things? Did you guys listen to Guy Kawasaki? Okay, I am major fangirl now. I'm probably gonna start listening to this podcast this weekend. I have found it so inspiring. What I'm finding inspiring right now, though, is that looking around this room, I don't know, I know some of you, but a lot of you I don't know, and I don't know where you guys have been hiding, but I am so excited that we're all here in a room. I don't know if you're tech-enabled company, entrepreneur, this is going to be a very exciting night for all of us. I did want to introduce these fine ladies, or at least Tracy on the panel. Okay. All right, I get the honor now of introducing Tracy Lawrence. Tracy was a CEO and co-founder of Choose, a technology company connecting local restaurants with companies for corporate meal delivery. Tracy raised $40 million in venture capital and scaled to 300 employees before selling the company in 2020. She moved to Hawaii and is now an executive coach for technology founders. She's passionate about supporting women in tech here in Hawaii.
Thank you. Aloha. Oh my goodness. It is so amazing to see all of you. So, 5 months ago, I sat down for coffee with Michael Bennett. Is Michael here? He's going to come here in a second, or he promised me, so we'll see. So Michael Bennett is the wonderful human being that put on the inaugural Honolulu Tech Week that we're all enjoying this week. And 5 months ago, it was a vision. And he said, there's this demand for a Wahine panel event. You know, we want to be supporting women. Would you run it? And I was kind of nervous because I had moved here about 4 years ago. I don't have any network. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. But where are we going to host it? Who's going to sponsor it? What do the Wahine of Hawaii actually care about? Right? I didn't have answers to any of these questions. And so there was a lot of unknown. But in the face of this unknown, Michael offered me up his community. And I spoke to 14 women, and I didn't realize how transient the community is. And 14 women said that they weren't here for this week. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a little tough, but this is okay. So up until 2 weeks ago, we didn't have the venue secured, and even a week and a half ago, we didn't have food and beverage. So I have to say that I finally understand through the power of community how Hawaii is small but mighty, because this community, it's so amazing. This community really came together and really pulled together to support each and every one of you being here for this conversation. I'm getting chicken skin right now just thinking about it. So I want to take a little time to thank each and every person that has helped us with this event to make it magic. So I'd like to start off thanking FarmLink Hawaii. So FarmLink, I know. Rob is a dear friend of mine. He is the co-founder and CTO. And FarmLink is the sponsors of our food and our beverage. And they are a delivery service. So I get my local groceries delivered from FarmLink straight to me, which is great because I don't have to leave my house to eat well. Also, along with FarmLink, Ashley Lukens Consulting, their marketing firm, came in for the sponsorship. And so we're very, very grateful for them. Yeah. So, Rob, will you come up just to say a few words about FarmLink? And you also.
Hi, everybody. I'm only here because our illustrious CEO, Claire Sullivan, also has a 2-year-old, and I think Ashley is not here either. Also, another little person. So yeah, my boss sent me here to say a few words for you all. But yeah, I want to thank Tracy and just for allowing us to participate. But yeah, Farmly Kauai, we just deliver local groceries 7 days a week. We source from farmers, ranchers, food makers all across the state and deliver to people's homes on Oahu. You can order up until 10 p.m. tonight and get an order tomorrow. We are a women-led organization and plenty of amazing, powerful wahine in leadership and in the company, and I'm just super excited to see everybody here and excited about what you're all going to talk about. So I don't know, I'll leave it short there, but yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, if you haven't had a chance to try some of the canelés in the back, so Planted by Latour Cafe donated those. And they are plant-based and they're butter mochi, which is incredible. So I was vegetarian for about 20 years, so I love vegetarian food and vegan food. So Planted is actually just down the street from here. They are an offshoot of the Latour Cafe chain. But they offer plant-based cuisine that's rich, it's flavorful, it's delicious. They have burgers, they have sandwiches, and they also have really good macarons, like the Latour Cafe. So thank you, Planted. They couldn't be here tonight, but thank them. Thank you, guys. You can thank them by eating all of the canelés so I don't take them home. Okay, I want to give another special shout out to Mitha and to Crystal for this space. I mean, honestly, this space has been incredible. They have been such incredible community organizers and supporters. At 5 p.m., this was a co-working space, and they very gently and lovingly kicked people out in order to host this event. So if you both could come up, please. Yeah, you wouldn't have food here without her, so thank you. Okay. Our volunteer team came here early to clear this co-working space, to set everything up, and to make sure that this was going to be such an amazing experience for you. So if you are a volunteer, could you please raise your hand? Volunteer team, Lauren, David, Alexia, Rachel, who's an attendee and just came early and helped. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. And then finally, I want to thank Michael Bennett, because for those of you that have been to other events, it's been a very, very inspiring week. The mayor came out to the opening ceremony, and I kind of got hit with the idea like, wow, we're really 2 phone calls away from the mayor. That is kind of part of this small but mighty that I'm starting to understand. This community is going to be so helpful to you, especially on your entrepreneurial journey. And that's something that I grew my business in San Francisco, and while there was support, it's not like the overwhelming spirit of aloha and love that you get from here. So, thank you guys, and thank you, Michael. Okay. All right, so I had a chance to really sift through everybody's feedback on why you're here. And so thank you all for answering that portion. It helped me to customize the questions that we're going to be talking about. And one of the big things that came up was a lot of you want to put your energy into entrepreneurial activities, but you don't know where to start. You don't know how. And it brought up for me one of the topics that we don't often talk about as entrepreneurs, but that's the idea of the unknown, and that's the uncertainty. And the question that I want you to reflect on during this talk is, what is your relationship with the unknown? Does it bring up fear? Does it bring up money concerns? Issues of worthiness? And what I want you to know is that every fear and concern that you have, we have had. And any builder has had. And even in spite of that, what we start to recognize is that we build anyway. You have the fear, you recognize that it is in the car with you, and you say, all right, fear, come along, but you ain't gonna drive. And that is part of the magic that we wanna bring to this panel, which is some vulnerability. I think for women, we have more of an emotional access point to our fear, which can make it feel bigger. I think also we haven't been as socialized to break through our fear barriers, especially professionally. And so that's what's gonna make some of the magic today. We're gonna get real. We wanna share the real challenges, because I want you to know that you don't have to compare your insides to our outsides with the accolades and all the amazing awards and achievements. Because when each of us started, we didn't have those things. We didn't know. I want to get these bios right, guys, so I got to really look. Okay. So the theme here is that don't let your fears be your blockers. Let them be your friends. Learn about them. Alexia Akbay, she's going to share more of her story of being a transplant to Hawaii and what it looks like to come here with no context and to learn and to grow and to be an important part of the community. So Alexia is the CEO and founder of Symbrosia. It's an emerging company dedicated to reducing methane emissions in livestock through the use of innovative seaweed feed additives. It's a very cool company. Very, very important work. You know. She secured over $17 million in venture and grant funding. She's been recognized as Forbes 30 Under 30 in social impact. And she leads her team in pioneering sustainable solutions for the agricultural industry. So this is another huge area of innovation that Hawaii is uniquely positioned for. So welcome, Alexia. Okay, my other incredible panelist is Chenoa Farnsworth. If you don't already know her, she is the managing partner at Blue Startups. And I want you to consider that when she started, I mean, she's very well known in the tech scene here if you don't already know her, but I don't think it was obvious that you would have a top 20 US accelerator in the entire country, based here in Honolulu, that she'd already be on batch number 16, right, with their demo day next week, with a unicorn investment in their portfolio. These things aren't obvious when she started. It's something that we get to puff our chests about now. But you have to remember that we all kind of started from a place of not knowing. Blue Startups has invested in 120 companies to date, which have gone on to raise $500 million in venture capital. For the past 15 years, she managed the Hawaii Angels Investment Network, which has invested over $60 million in over 100 startup companies. And in 2006, she co-founded Kolohala Ventures, a Hawaii-based venture capital firm that invested $50 million into Hawaii-based technology startups. So please welcome Chenoa. And as for me, I suffered some of my greatest anxieties while running my business for 10 years. So you can look at, again, all the shiny money that I raised, but if you were to stretch that out and really go deep, it was rough. And yet, with all of these voices of doubts, the things that we're gonna share with you tonight, we still built. And so I want to encourage you that no matter what your insides look like, still build. And you'll see, and we've been encouraged, that today we're gonna share more of our insides with you to be more real. So we're gonna get into the panel. I've got two kind of themes that I want to share with you. We're going to talk about building and operating as a woman, and then we're going to talk about building and operating in Hawaii. And so there's going to be mixture, of course, but I'm trying to capture kind of the essence of us being an event within Honolulu Tech Week. Okay. So, all right, my friends. I want to start to talk about these kind of psychological barriers that we all face, and what it looks like for you and how you overcame them. And so for me, I remember hitting a very big psychological barrier when I was raising a $700,000 seed round, and it was a very long slog. It took me about almost a year to do it. And it got to a stage where I had an investor who was so excited about us, and the final day that he was actually supposed to come and visit, he calls me up and he's like, "Your company is fantastic, your clients love you, but we can't invest. And the reason is, we don't think that you're out for blood. And catering, which was the business I was in, catering and local marketplaces are a hand-to-hand combat business. And we just don't think you're out for blood. He'd never met us, by the way. And I remember I hung up the phone and I just sat there and I just crumpled. I was in my studio apartment in San Francisco and I just started crying. And I sat there for a good half a day and I asked myself the question, am I out for blood? Am I really built to be an entrepreneur if I'm not out to kill people? And I thought about it, and over the course of the next few days, something came up within me. And it was that he was right. I wasn't out for blood. I had built my company because I'm half Jewish, I'm half Chinese, I love food. It's as simple as that, and I wanted to bring people together around food. And that was a big turning point for me to go, you know what, I don't have to be in the military to be an entrepreneur. But this is one of those things that gets pounded into our heads. And it took me a while to really overcome this. And so for the both of you, I wanted to see if you could share what was a psychological barrier that you had maybe earlier on, and how did you overcome it? What was your journey with it?
Yeah, aloha kako. My name is Alexia Akbay, as Tracy mentioned. Thank you, Tracy, so much for organizing this. It was a lot of intention that she put into this evening, so we're all really lucky to be enjoying the space together right now. When I started my company, I was 23, so not only was I a woman, but I was pretty young. And I had already, I think, from conversations surrounding early stages of my ideas with potential investors, started to recognize that there was some, or maybe I felt like I was almost transparent, like they didn't really recognize me as legitimate. And this is probably like the most expensive mistake that I had made recurringly since that time, but I had hired like middle-aged white men basically as part of my team, like intentionally to try to offset me being a young woman without experience. And they weren't a culture fit. We didn't jive. It's not necessarily, maybe I saw that those credentials were thought that they were going to be more, beneficial to me, or they had flexed a certain network. I didn't do that only one time. I've done that multiple times, really, until this past year have I finally kind of shifted out of, having even those people within my organizations that I had put there as placeholders to make up for myself. So I think that's there's multiple ones. I think that's a big one. I wrote, it's funny in hindsight, but I wrote my first sexual harassment policy at our company because I was sexually harassed by another one of our employees. And to your extent, yeah, I mean, out for blood, the amount of times that I've been told either that my numbers aren't inflated enough, or that and I'm like, well, I know what that guy over there is telling you. I could do that too, but it's not gonna turn out that great. Or that I've heard oftentimes in even investor review committees that they've pulled out their own biases, showing that typically people don't believe numbers that women create as much as they believe. There's statistics on this. They don't believe that the numbers that women present are as accurate or are going to be as likely as numbers that men present. So I don't know how I've gotten around this. I think that maybe we can lead that into the next conversation. It's still an ongoing process for sure, but these little micro differences you will notice in almost every facet and aspect of your business. And I think that we'll get into how to be yourself through all of that later, but it's numerous.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course, when Tracy posed this question, I was like, well, which one of the bazillion times that happened to me should I share? Because there's a lot. But I guess the one that popped into my mind first was when I started Blue Startups, which was now 11 years ago. And my business partner, Maya, just walked in. She might remember this. Our state funder, no longer the same person, so I can say this, did not believe I was going to be tough enough. He kept saying it over and over again. You're not going to be tough enough on the entrepreneurs. You're going to have to bring somebody else in who's going to be tough because that's not you. You're too nice. I want to ask my entrepreneurs in the room, am I too nice? Have I been too nice to you? Yeah. I don't think that's my reputation. But I did spend a lot of time second guessing myself because of that comment, right? It rattled around in my head for years. Like, am I being tough enough right now? Maybe I should be really tough right now. Oh, wait, maybe I'm being too tough right now. Shit, oh my God, I don't know how to be, until you finally like settle in and like, this is who I am, right? I'm a direct but loving coach and mentor, and that's who I am. That's my voice. And it's working. So there you have it.
Amazing. Yeah, it's like you can't let other people define who you are at the core of it. And I started my company when I was 20, and so there was a bunch of like, I don't know who I am, you tell me who I am. Chenoa, so you've spoken about the differences between confidence and competence in male and female founders. So could you tell us how you've seen this play out?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because Alexia just referred to this, and I was like, yes, exactly. She's talking about how she developed her numbers, and I'm sure she spent a lot of time doing that and was very thorough about it. And that's been my experience as well. Like, the female founder is very competent. They're going to know every corner of their business because they don't want to be called out. They don't want to get caught in some kind of gotcha game that men like to play with you, right? And so they're going to go real deep on all that stuff. So they have all of that competence behind them. They know every detail of the business. But I have found that they do not project as much confidence. And that can be a problem, right? We're humans, right? And so we're picking up on body language, on vibe, on voice, on eye contact, on everything. Like, can I trust this person? Is this person maybe not out for blood, but at least out to make money? How am I reading this person's confidence, right? And that's a big deal in entrepreneurship. We have to walk this very fine line between, being full of shit, frankly, and then you're going to get called out on that, and being like, well, I'm not sure. Well, maybe I might do, something like, and then nobody is going to write you a check for that, right? So we really have to bring our confidence to the table to the same extent that we have brought our competence to the table. Our competence, I see it over and over again. Our confidence is something we need to bring it. And that's something I'm always telling my entrepreneurs, right? Bring it. I have to tell the men that too, to be fair, right? But more often than not, I've got to tell the women, speak up, body language matters, and bring your confidence that match everything you know about your business, because you know it inside and out. You've done the work. So now bring the confidence to match.
So Alexia, we had this kind of spicy conversation, which I was like, all right, let's bring this to the panel. Let's see how this goes. So, as Alexia brought up to me, there are, women make up 60% of US college students. In big cities, women are starting to out-earn men. And in the last 4 years, VC investment into founding teams with at least one woman jumped from 15% to 28%. So it's happening. We're not there yet, but it is definitely happening. Part of what I like to do is elevate the story for women because, yes, sexism exists, and things are really changing. And this is a huge opportunity for us to really start to live our power professionally. So I have a lot of girlfriends that we have been talking kind of behind the scenes about how female success is actually upsetting a lot of the gender balance at home and at work, and kind of the masculine feminine. I have a dear friend who she cannot go on a date less than 2 hours after work because she comes off as too masculine. And so she has to rein it in. And so it's this weird balance of okay, I have to be masculine at work, but I have to be feminine at home. So I wanted to bring this up and see what you had to add to it.
Yeah, I think I used to play this like funny game where I would underplay everything. Well, I'm with someone now, but when I was dating before, and also I live in Kona, so the dating scene is drastically different. But so we grow seaweed, and there's like another algae farm kind of down the road, and I'd be on date number one, and they'd be like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I just grow like seaweed." Yeah, and then like they're like, "Oh, like down at like Sinotech, which is the other place." And I'm like, "Yeah, something like that." And then like maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months into the dating, they like Google me finally, and they're like, "So, I read this stuff," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, I don't even think that like." You might have even been interested in dating me like right off the bat, because I found that it's really intimidating. Men get in their head once they see, or not men, it could be really, I don't have as much experience in non-hetero situationships or relationships or situationships. But I would play it off like none of that really existed in order to keep some sort of like masculine, feminine balance. And I think that since then, I've almost flipped it back into my work, where instead of being masculine at work, I'm actually trying to bring my feminine into my work environment so it can be sustained. Because I don't think actually that like code switching, honestly, between being masculine and feminine in different physical spaces in your life is a sustainable way to operate and remain sane. So I've really tried to start, instead of toning down my masculine in other places, bringing my feminine back into the workplace. And I think everyone at work feels more secure, actually, when I am operating in my more authentic version of myself. Really, I think that it brings people together. Obviously, the feminine has a lot of really unique aspects that can't be recreated. And so I think that finding ways to go back to that has really been my strategy there. Yeah.
What about for you? What's the feminine like?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm probably not the most feminine person, I'll be honest. I'm just thinking, like, do I code switch? I don't think so. I'm just kind of that way. But what your question kind of conjured up for me was the double standard, obviously, in society with regards to roles. And I'm lucky enough to be married to a man who's been very supportive, and he's been the primary caretaker. And that has been great. It works for us in our home, but outside of our home, there's a lot of judgment for that. And it's kind of crazy. This is like the last bastion where sexism is just totally okay, totally out in the open. They'll be like, "Oh, so you're the mom. We haven't met you yet." I'm like, "So fucking what?" Like, oh, Dad's coming to, get the kids. Wow, he's here a lot. He picks up the kids a lot. Why would those are his kids? Why shouldn't he pick them up? Like, like he gets all these brownie points. Like, wow, he's doing all this stuff. Like, he's so amazing. I'm like, nobody'd be giving me brownie points if I, what I mean? If I was in the same position of picking up the kids. So, like, it's like the last bastion of just sexism, free for all, is parenting. Where moms are supposed to do all the mom stuff. And if you're a career mom, you do all the career stuff and all the mom stuff, and then if you're the dad, you get all kinds of praises for doing mom stuff, traditional mom stuff. Like, it's bullshit.
Chenoa, speaking the truth. Oh man, we could do a whole panel on that. We're gonna move on to theme 2. Thanks for opening the can of worms with me. All right, this one's more about building and operating in Hawaii. So, Alexia, you said when you came here, you kind of had no cultural context, and now you are deeply ingrained in the community, being on Hawaii Island, working with Native Hawaiian communities. Many of us are transplants, myself included, and we're kind of learning the context here. So maybe you could share with us, how did you learn, and maybe some stories from that.
Yeah, for sure. I think, being here before and after COVID allowed us to make a lot of iterations through how we approach this, because the landscape has really changed a lot over the past 5 years, at least from my perspective. But we relocated here as part of a state-funded accelerator program, so very similar to Blue Startups. It's called Hatch. It's in Kona. And so the first time I came here to Hawaii was part of that program, and that was I actually haven't left since that point. So I really did not have any idea what I was getting into in terms of cultural context, landscape, even like I grew up on the East Coast of the United States, so I had even less exposure to the history here. And so once I kind of gathered a lot of just the last century or 2 centuries of political historical context, I think it really became an interesting challenge to figure out how do we navigate not only the current oppression of the Native Hawaiian people in this area, but also all of the different things that are happening during COVID, with changes to job, with the cost of living increasing in Hawaii. And traditionally, I think tech here, the understanding was that, you could just bring in people from the mainland that are talented enough to hold these positions. And what we found was that those people stay for 2 years, maybe, and then they turn over and they return because they can't, for whatever reason, remain here. And it became to be, maybe this actually isn't a good business decision because there's no longevity with bringing anyone in. And so our first kind of step was, okay, we're just not hiring anyone unless they live here and specifically live in Kona or on the Big Island now. And so that was kind of our first step of really transitioning into a company that was locally focused. And since then, we've continued to develop programming for, I guess, cultural education for our, transplant employees that might have come here previously or for another job and then end up working for us. And then really what we've been doing over the past 2 years is focusing on career development of our Native Hawaiian employees from a perspective that makes sense to them in the cultural and economic landscapes that they're used to. So capitalism's not historically the model in Hawaii, it's stewardship. So how can you empower your Native Hawaiian employees within your company to develop programs around those values that are good for the business, to also share those values with your other employees? And so we've created a number of different programs internally and then also externally that allow, specifically those folks to practice and to educate the rest of our staff. And so I think it's been a really beautiful evolution, and we still have a lot of work to do, but I think having the mentality of a small business, even as a tech company, is where you can kind of start to transition. If this, we're here in this community, we're not some Silicon Valley tech company, we're in Hawaii now, and so let's focus on building a company and a community here. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, there are a lot of people in the audience want to be entrepreneurs. There are a lot of business owners here, which is really exciting. And there are people that are consultants or looking to start to branch out into being entrepreneurs. So what advice would you offer specific to here in Hawaii, how to start?
Yeah, I think Olin Lagon said on Monday night, this is a great place to start a company. It's true, it's a hard place to scale a company. I'm sure Alexia could talk about that. But it is a great place to start a company. It is a small community, right? Many of us know each other, and access is right there. As you said, we're 2 phone calls away from the mayor here. So if you want to talk to somebody, you can probably talk to them if they're a decision maker, somebody that could influence your company, potential customer, what have you. So that's amazing access. Not every community has that. And we're also very community minded in Hawaii. So everybody wants to see you, they got your back, right? They want to see you succeed. And what kind of goes around comes around here in a big way. So we're always okay, I'm helping you, you're gonna help me, always paying it forward. So I think all of those things create an environment where it's a really, really nice place to start. And there are now, I think, 10 accelerators, So whatever you are doing, I promise you, there's an accelerator for you. Whether it's tech or CPG or aquaculture or deep tech up at the university, impact, you name it. There's one for female founders. So there is a lot of resources out there. I think that just try to take advantage of all of that. It's really right there for you. Those programs, they need people to participate. They're like, hello, anyone out there want to start a company today? So,
Especially women.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trust me. Yeah, especially women. Like, we have a goal at Blue Startups to be 50%, female-founded companies, and in tech, that is a challenge, I'll be honest. So we're always looking for new companies, especially Hawaii-based, especially female-founded. That's like, the golden goose for us. But there's lots and lots of resources out there.
So if somebody were to apply to Blue, what would be the right criteria for them to apply?
Yeah, again, there's lots of accelerators, so Blue may not be the right fit. Blue, but it is for a certain subset, right? So Blue Startups invests in globally scalable businesses, so you have to have ambition beyond Hawaii to sell your product or service. It is tech-based, so that means exportable with the push of a button, so we're not manufacturing anything and we're not shipping anything that's heavy from out of here. I don't think that makes sense. So primarily we're investing in software, but we've invested in lots of different kinds of tech or tech-enabled businesses. Really the bottom line is you have to have this global ambition, right? You want to build a billion-dollar company. Not everybody has that. You don't have to have that. This is a hard path, as we've been talking about all week, right? Like, building a big company is a big adventure. So it's not for everyone. But that's the kind of companies that we're looking for at Blue.
Thank you. Alexia, what about you?
I think Hawaii is a really unique place, and for those same reasons that it's unique, it's an interesting place to develop entrepreneurial ideas around those really beautiful aspects of Hawaii, like the really potentially abundant agricultural system that we could have here, the different sustainability technologies that could be developed. I think that in those industries, we could really be an example for the rest of the world on what's possible, and in developing new ways to grow food or to do certain processes. And Elemental Accelerator has been one of 10 a really great source of those new solutions that have gone global out of Hawaii as well. But I really think that if you're looking for a particular industry to be in, we've benefited greatly, I think, being an agricultural company here with all of the, 2 phone calls away, aka Coconut Wireless, but you have access to a lot of different types of individuals, whether they're in government or business or trade or services or technology. It's just a nice spread of people in those industries already here, which you can source from to help grow your team or support your efforts.
I also want to put in a plug for Michelle Carmack's pitch program for women. She's right now, they're towards the tail end of it, but yesterday, that's Michelle, by the way, raise your hand, go find her, apply, get the link for the next batch. But there are, one thing that I realized in kind of doing the mentorship workshop yesterday is that it's also just as simple as having the gumption to walk through the doors of your potential client or a potential mentor. And so when I was so Choose was the company I started, and we worked with local restaurants. And I remember the first restaurant that I pitched, I just walked into the restaurant and I found the guy that looked like he owned the place. And I'll never forget this guy, Robert. He looks up at me and I was like, could I pitch you on something? And he's like, you have 5 minutes. I was like, okay, I'll go. And so we sat down, and it ended up being a wonderful business partnership. But I would say, and that was in Los Angeles. I think here, the doors open up even so much more for you if you are an entrepreneur. When I started as well, I started with a Word document and an e-fax line for $5 a month. That's it. You don't need to have a fancy website. There are so many small ways. We call it MVP, right? The minimum viable product. What is the smallest amount of something you need to do? I'm not technical. I'm a business person, but I knew that restaurants wanted catering clients and that the local student organizations and businesses wanted food from local restaurants. So I put the Word document together and I started just transacting orders and taking a percentage cut. I didn't have any website. I just had the phone, basically, and my legs. And that was it. I just walked around. So it doesn't always take much. Just get started, and the community will support you. Okay, so there's also a lot of people here that said that they want to contribute to the ecosystem. And so, Chenoa, I'm looking at you on sort of what are the opportunities that you see for entrepreneurs that are big, wide open opportunities that you personally would be interested in, any of the angels you know that would be interested in, that could be grown here?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to get involved if that's what you're looking for, and
Or to build.
yeah, or to build. I think there's a couple things I would recommend. One that's really easy, well, obviously, join a co-working space like the Hub, and you'll get connected to like-minded people, and it'll be awesome. You can also join networking groups. You know, there's Thrive High is one that's kind of new, but very inclusive and very active, and that's just pure networking. You can meet other folks that are in that's kind of tech focused, but you know, there are entrepreneurs in there too. So get out there and network. You know, that's like the best thing you can do. There are mentorship opportunities. So we have a mentor network. Probably every accelerator that I just talked about, 10 of them have mentor networks. So depending on, and you don't have to be like, you know, a lot of people think, oh, I can't be a mentor. I guarantee a lot of you have certain skill sets that others can benefit from. So you probably can be a mentor, and I would look into that. You can also, with regards to specifically Blue Startups, you can join our talent pool, our mentor list, or our internship program. We have interns here, we have entrepreneurs in residence, we have mentors here, we have also a talent pool where we just collect resumes from folks who are looking to join a startup, perhaps. And, you know, because we really are trying to connect the dots as well, because one of the problems that Hawaii has, especially in the tech industry, is like getting this flywheel going, right? Where we're like, we have talent, but they can't find a job. We have open jobs, but we can't find talent. There's just like, there's just kind of not enough of this happening. So I do encourage you to look locally. Another great resource for community is the Hawaii Slack channel, if you're not already on that. There's like 7,000 or 8,000 people on that now. They're not all here. Some of them are aspirational Hawaii people, but that's okay. You know, it is a great place to like look for a job, post a job, find events, all that good stuff. So, you know, just get connected. I think the biggest pet peeve I have from somebody who's been here and been in this industry for so long is when people come to me and say, well, there's nothing happening in tech in Hawaii. And I'm like, leave your freaking house, you know, like you gotta get out from behind the Zoom screen and like meet some people. People are doing stuff. You just you've gotta do the work to get engaged. Yeah.
I also want to promote Jen DeRose's event. Can you raise your hand? So clear your calendar tomorrow. She's got an event at the Vai Collective starting at 9 a.m., 9 to 3 p.m., till 2-ish. $35, you can buy tickets at the door, lunch provided, and it's for talking story, co-working with other women. So, Hawaii Women in Tech, yeah. There's so many of these events, y'all. Okay, so we are I'm gonna ask one more question. While I do that, I want y'all to think about any questions you have for us. We have to get Alexia wrapped up and out the door for her flight at like 7:15. So I got to keep us all on time, okay? But think about if you have any questions, and we're gonna move over towards a Q&A, and then you can stay in this space until about 8 p.m. We've got more snacks and drinks. Please finish them. I don't want to take them home. Okay, so this next one, this is kind of me. It's challenging one of the assumptions that I had coming into leading this panel, which was I came in thinking like, what does Hawaii have to learn from Silicon Valley, right? And certainly there's a lot of talent from Silicon Valley. There's a lot of big thinking from Silicon Valley that can really benefit the tech community here. And I'm so inspired, like how we are small but mighty. I'm so inspired by what Hawaii has to offer to Silicon Valley and the tech world at large. And so I'm curious, this is also kind of a cultural question, right? Because I see the humility that's present here. There's so many beautiful aspects of culture to be built. So what can Silicon Valley and tech learn from Hawaii?
Yeah, I mean, a lot, I think, but I'll focus on one thing that we talk about a lot at Blue Startups, because there are very many accelerators around the world now. When we started, not so many, now a bazillion. So for us, it's competitive, and we also look at our own competitive positioning just like any other company, right? What is different? All of them offer investment, mentorship. You know, I could go down the long list of things, and we're just like that. But I think, you know, our secret sauce is ohana, and that's something that is really, I think, very specific to Hawaii and the way that we relate to one another. We build strong family connections here and community. I think all of my cohort members can attest to that. We spend time and effort building that connective tissue. And I think that connective tissue serves you well for ever and ever kind of thing. Like, I've got cohort members from 10 years ago that are still in touch with each other, still supporting each other on the journey of entrepreneurship, because trust me, you're going to need support if you're on that journey, right? So building those bonds and being really open to building those bonds, I think, and that kind of family feeling that we get here with our friends and family and communities of all kinds is really unique to Hawaii, and it's not something you're going to find everywhere else. Even in other towns this size, it's unique. It's a cultural thing as well as a size thing. So I think we, you know, everyone could benefit from getting a little bit more real and intimate and connected with each other on a human level rather than just a business level, right? I mean, I lived in Washington, D.C. for a time. You know, this was before I moved back home. I'm from here. I was on the mainland and came back. And one of the reasons I came back was that experience especially. Like, DC was awful. You know, people are like, so who do you work for? Oh, not important to me. Okay, so who do you work for? Oh, no, that's not going to help me either. Okay, so I'm like, God, I might be a nice person. Or like, geez, you know, talk about cutthroat. It was just, nobody cared about anybody else on a human level, heart level. So I think that's something unique here that the rest of the world could definitely benefit from.
It's so funny in San Francisco, because it's like you go to a bar, you know, a networking event with other founders, and they're like, so how many people do you have at your company? And if it's like under 10 people, they're like,
How much money have you raised?
Yeah, I mean, mine are pretty parallel in terms of top. I think that I try to avoid San Francisco and Silicon Valley now as much as I can, so I might not have the relevant updated data. But I really think that the more that I'm here and interacting with folks on the mainland or in Silicon Valley, the more I realize that people actually care about their reputation over here, because we are all very connected, and so people are less likely to be assholes over here. And I think that in Silicon Valley, it's everything is so transactional. The number of deals they're looking at per day, like the number of investments they're trying to make, et cetera, really takes the human element out of the whole experience, the whole tech experience, which I think, you know, to some default, a lot of people in this industry might feel more comfortable talking to a computer than to another human, which is fine, and we love those people. But I really think that there needs to be, for humanity, maybe like a stronger adherence to just morals and values, and in such a transactional industry that gets lost. And I always joke about this, but I feel like there should be a credit score equivalent for like how much of an asshole you are, so that like before I agree to a Zoom call with you, I can like decide if you've met my threshold or not. But yeah, it's tough.
amazing. Yeah, this is, I mean, to bring it back to the feminine equation and being authentic as a leader, I think this is something that women, we have a particular talent towards, or the feminine at least has a talent towards, which is community and family. And how do we bring that into businesses that still want to succeed and still want to win? I don't see that being competitive and wanting to win and being feminine and bringing people together are mutually exclusive. So this is something we can totally bring together. And if you feel more on the feminine side of the spectrum, build. If you're more on the masculine side, build. These don't have to be impediments. Okay, who has any questions for the panel? Oh, okay, I saw your hand first.
I'm not sure if you told us why you made the move to Hawaii, so coming from Silicon to here.
Yeah. So why did I make the move to Hawaii? Thank you. I sold my company in 2020, and I just felt incredibly lost, and I needed to get away from Silicon Valley. Everything did feel transactional, and I didn't feel I had a sense of identity or worth out there. I also love surfing, and I've built a relationship with Hawaii since I was a kid, but I'm from California originally, and so I came out here with my boyfriend during the pandemic and thought I was gonna stay for 6 months, like right out the pandemic when we thought it was gonna be short, and then ended up staying 4 years. Yeah. Yeah, right on.
Hi, my name is Priscilla. I just wanted to ask, I want to open the door to new opportunities, but paving a path for new opportunities is one that I've gotten used to doing for myself. How did you, any of you can answer this as a matter of fact, how did you grow comfortable with opening new doors with other founders if you have at all, or other partners?
Yeah, I spammed email like everyone in the beginning. I was just writing out like, but I will say this, sometimes I get probably like 15 cold marketing emails a day, and sometimes if you're contacting someone who's like actively in the trenches, might be difficult to get that one-on-one conversation with them. So I always went for like more the retired or like kind of successful career people, not as financially focused right now, for advice, and they were more than happy to talk to me for like hours, I feel like, at a time on the phone. So I think just like if you are trying to get that advice, just be conscious maybe of who has time and maybe who doesn't have as much time, and you might be more successful. And then the other thing I always try to do is just like give before I'm receiving, and usually that comes back to you like 5x. So helping someone out with something and just opening up doors that way by making yourself not useful, but like, just putting yourself in an environment.
Yeah, I would just second that I think like people are going to ask me for advice a lot, but I really appreciate, and I try to say yes a lot. I also totally like just pay it forward. People are like, why do you take every meeting? I'm like, I don't know. You never know. Like that person could be the next Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know. Like. You never know. I don't know. But I do really love it, like, when I'm taking those meetings where if anybody asks me, like, what can I do for you today? Like, how can I help you today? Even if they're my junior or maybe they don't think they can be useful, they can always be useful in some way. I'll be like, well, I'm really struggling with this, like, graphic. You're a graphics person. Like, could you just whip me up something like that, you know, or whatever? I'll ask people. I'll be like, I'm looking for an introduction to this person. You know this person. Like, help me out with that. So, you know, just ask, you know, how can I help you? It's nice just to ask anyway, even if you can't be helpful. It's nice to ask.
I'm sorry to build on that. Even with those different genders.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I went through my school networks. You go far back as high school. I went to my college networks when I started to break into tech, and I was like, who's in tech that I know? And then because they're alumni, they were willing to take my call. They introduced me eventually to 500 Startups, which is an accelerator program in SF. And then through 500, I created more alumni networks. And then I spoke to 17 founders the first 2 weeks and was like, how do you do this? How do you fundraise? And then they became my intros to investors. So I'd say build up as many alumni networks as you can. This could be a mini alumni network. Right, you never know when you go to an event the kind of doors that it opens up, and at the end of the day, I've been so surprised. We talk about scalable tech and software, but all of that is based on a handshake. All of that is based on a hug behind the scenes. And so when you realize that the other person is a human and you can catch them, ideally in person, but it doesn't always have to be, you'll find people are really receptive.
Sorry, I'm just going to plug here. Become a free member of Hawaii Women in Tech. Because that's the whole point, is we can help each other out. and through opening up doors, windows, scaling the side of buildings, however we need to get in, we can help each other. And I think how many people have shown up here today shows that, we have over 400 women on Meetup, and we're working on building that more and more across all the islands. So please join, connect with each other, and we'll continue this journey with one another. That's how I feel. I'm so motivated. All of you guys are so inspiring. I'm trying not to cry, so thank you.
Thank you for sharing your perspectives and your stories today. My question is around, say you're someone that comes from Silicon Valley or New York. Say you're someone that comes with really great experience and learning in this awesome hustle culture. Whether you're trying to found a business, start something, or whether you're going into a job in the market here or for a company here, what advice do you have for that type of persona with great professionalism, great experience? How should they approach things in Hawaii? A culture that is more casual, more probably balanced, but more laid back, maybe passive. When you're bringing things to the table, how do you kind of align the dots with your experience maybe up here, but your audience is actually a blend and is not so much of an audience like in the East Coast or Silicon Valley? How do you approach that?
Yeah, the reality is it's going to be a blend, just like Hawaii's a blend of all people, and so I think implementing any new process or doing anything at a normal company, the process or the product that you're implementing needs to be for your audience. So I think over time, and probably with a couple of hiccups, you will find kind of a blend of a product that honestly makes sense, and I never feel like it's taken down a notch or there's any sort of compensation being had. I think at the end, then it's the right product, right? Because it works for your team. And as a manager, as a professional coming into a company or trying to build a company here, you're only as good as what you can produce for the rest of your team. So I think that if you're from that environment, you can adapt. And just noticing maybe earlier when you miss the mark and trying to pivot quickly and make up for and be afraid to fail, in startup principles or, I think it does apply here. So I think just take those same principles and kind of look at then the audience that you're working with.
Yeah, I always kind of give the same advice to people that are new here. And, Hawaii is a very unique place. You've figured that out already if you've been here for more than 5 minutes. And so it can be hard to navigate. And I get that question a lot, how do I navigate this? I feel like I'm always stepping on, somebody's toes. And I get it. It can be hard. I think the analogy I always make is if you're from here, Hawaii is your mother. And I can diss my mom all day long and be like, God damn it, you're so annoying, But you can't, right? If you diss my mom, I'm offended, right? So I think it's just good perspective to keep in mind. We're just kind of really sensitive about our mom, I'm sorry, but that's how it is, And we just have to tread lightly, I think, with that and navigate around those kind of, landmines, because otherwise, it's going to feel like a place that you don't belong, because people are going to be kind of putting up a little wall if they feel like you're kind of dissing their mom.
I hadn't heard that one before.
Well, I made it up, but it works for me.
I dig it. Okay.
Hi. You were talking about MVPs, and I'm in product, so that I understand. Executing an MVP, I get. But something I've always wondered is, what is the MVP for walking into the office for your very first raise? What is that conversation like? How do you get through that door? What's that first step? And how do you say, okay, from the first concept of an idea to the perfect pitch deck, there's a really large spectrum, and that's kind of hard to land, and I've never been able to kind of visualize what that MVP could be.
And do you mean more around the process versus like just the deck? Yeah. Well, I'll start. I'm sure y'all have a lot to say here. I would say, really, it's about you can MVP practice your deck. And so I actually start with other entrepreneurs. I actually think entrepreneurs and other founders are the node that are going to lead you to all the connections that you need if you're looking to do VC funding or go that path. And so if you have really friendly entrepreneurs who have done this, who have raised before, they are the first people that I take my deck to. And it's ugly. And I'm like, hey, this is gonna be ugly. And they're like, great, let's go. And so it kind of sets us up for me not to be too sensitive and for them to have expectations adjusted. But I would say it's, maybe even I can rewind, it's also finding that traction. So when I went through 500, we were doing, I forget how many customers, we maybe had 10 customers a month, and they were on a recurring basis. And so that was kind of my MVP, to be like, we have something here, and we have something that people are willing to pay money for. And that felt like enough of an MVP. So then I could take it to a founder who's like, this is also enough of an MVP. Let me introduce you to an accelerator program or an angel that I know. And then you just start having more and more conversations. You build out the deck. I would encourage you to tighten up a schedule around it, which we could talk about more in depth. I'd be happy to afterwards. But once you have a very tight schedule around doing your fundraise, you do all your practice in the beginning, and then through those founders, you ask for intros to their investors. So there's a lot I could say, so I'm gonna hold myself back for a second. But yeah.
Yeah, I think your MVP really depends on the product that you're creating and how much financing you're looking for. And unfortunately, right now, it's actually like a more difficult market because of the way that the economy is shaping up and the interest rates. So people really want to see tangible fiscal evidence that someone wants this MVP. So I think that's kind of the value proposition that you're trying to show, is that you have something that people want. And so you need additional data like, trials or consumer trials, or X many people bought it at this price. So you're trying to connect that this is a desirable product, I feel like, when you go out for your first kind of pitch. And then, typically when you do go to investors, you want what are called like warm introductions. So you want someone to refer you. Being in communities like this is a great place to start. Reaching out to any of us is a great place to start. And then, you're gonna need a number of materials and really like a story and a vision of how the product, the financing, and the company journey all kind of ties together to get you to a point where you're running a profitable business. Hopefully that. And then once you do raise money and you have board members, then they help you do all of this stuff, and they can tell you because they're actual investors and they can rip apart your deck too. So,
I would just add that you got to make sure you're talking to the right people also. I think, really common mistake is thinking, I'm going to raise money from venture capitalists when you haven't taken the step to raise money, from your friends and family and fools first, and then angels, and then, so there's a process here, and it takes time, and you got to make sure you're talking to the right person at the right stage of your business, basically.
Oh, we have time for like one more question. So raise your hand really high. Oh man, I see 2 hands over there. Come on. Sold to the highest bidder.
Hello, I had a question. What advice do you have for someone who's working as a W-2 employee and working on a startup part-time, borderline thinking of starting own business full-time?
Go for it. Quit your job.
So it really depends what type of responsibilities you have. I think that for me, before I fully transitioned, I made sure that I had like my basic essentials. So raising financing is a really great way to actually transition full time, because you can pay yourself a salary maybe ahead of being profitable, which is helpful. But a lot of the time, probably like for the first 2 years, you're double hustling. And then you can probably fully transition over to the other entity. But going back to like the MVP and the story, that should be part of your whole strategy is like, when do I become 100% on this company and what do I need to do? How many nail polishes do I need to sell to like cover my own salary and my own financial needs? And so that's kind of how I frame it, is include your own personal needs in that journey so that you can start full-time as well.
There's this guy, Mike Kim, he's like a masterful branding consultant, and he talks about how he couldn't afford to make the transition until a specific point. And so he talked about it like the Zodiac system to help him focus. So he had all these ideas for the new business he wanted to start, but every year he would do one thing. So the first year was the year of the blog, and all he did was blog because that was all he had time for. Then the second year he added on the year of the podcast, and then the year of the book. And I thought it was a really clever way to get focus, because if you have to juggle two things, you have to focus. So get that focus in order until you have enough of the income or the momentum to raise a round, or enough income to make the leap. Okay, friends, I'm gonna have to cut that off here. Thank you all so much for participating, your wonderful questions. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you. This room will be available till 8. Come hang out with us before Alexia has to leave in like 7 minutes.